Hey there, Peppermint Pals. So for this video, I'm using these markers I got for Christmas. My mom's cousin gave both her and me these coloring books, and she sent along these really cheap dollar store markers. And I was trying them on the coloring book, and they just seemed to eat away at the paper. And I thought, okay, well, let me try them on some actual paper that works for markers. So here I'm trying them on Bristolboard and see if they do any better. And so I thought I'd do a video seeing how these markers work when I actually try and use them on more professional style paper and in a more professional way, I guess. Now, if you noticed at the beginning, I was swatching them, and I did 2 swatches for each color, and the reason was because I started doing them, and it was on Bristolboard, and it did eat away a little bit, and so I tried coloring it lighter, and it did help a little bit. So at least there was that, but I was concerned because it was starting to eat away at the paper and get all kind of jerky and weird, so I wasn't sure if it was gonna work. So yeah, the markers didn't work out as well as I wish they had. This paper that I'm using for this drawing does have a bit of a tooth to it, so I did try a much smoother paper for another drawing a little later, but it's still kind of, they didn't work very well on that. I guess only thing I didn't try was actual marker paper, but there are a couple other reasons why I didn't really care for these markers, which I'll get into a little bit later. So for this, I wanted to do something cute, and I came up with this scene with this princess, and I also wanted to use kind of all the markers, so I could kind of get an idea of how they work together. So she's in this room and she's got this bird, and I really tried to use all the different colors. I am outlining this with a Copic 0.8 fine liner, and this, has nothing to do with the markers that this video is about, but I just figured I'd bring it up. I do really like Copic markers, but I don't really care for their fine liners. I don't know what it is about them. Well, for one, they smudge more than other fine liners I've noticed, and also they just, I don't know, they seem to resist the paper a little more. I should have gone with my Micron 0.8 because I really love Microns. They don't smudge, they just, I don't know, they're just really good. And what's interesting, I know a lot of people prefer the thin markers or the thin fine liners. I like those when I have to do really small details, but I actually really like the thicker ones. I find that you can make a thick marker thin, but you can't make a thin marker thick. So the 0.8 is actually my favorite, or maybe the 0.5 if I don't want to go quite so bold. So of course now I'm coloring the skin, and that was a problem with these markers. They're not very smooth, and it depends. Sometimes you're okay with that texture, like, for example, maybe on cloth or wood or fur. But when you want skin, you want it to go on smooth, and that's just such a problem with the cheaper markers. I'm sure well-practiced people could do it, but even so, I tried pretty hard, different techniques, and I couldn't get it to be really smooth. And the point of these cheap marker challenges, of course, are to find art supplies that people who maybe are starting out or people who have a limited budget can use. And I don't even know if these had a brand name. They were pretty cheap, like generic dollar store markers. So I wouldn't waste your time on these. You can get cheap markers that do work a lot better. One of the reasons why I didn't really care for these markers is because they were so bold. And of course a lot of that comes with the color pack that it was. But, for example, Crayola, those are pretty cheap, but they also work pretty well. They're not top quality and you can't really layer them, but they work okay. And They're really good for people who, are on a budget or whatever. And you can get many different colors of them, and it's not too expensive. With this, like, I didn't really care for the picture, and I think it would have worked better if I had more subtle colors, because just the background was just as bright as the foreground and the middle ground, and it was so busy and so distracting, and that's part of the reason why I did a second one. I wanted to give the markers a little bit of a chance on better paper, but I also wanted to give them maybe a bit more toned down picture to kind of get an idea of how they work together without such a busy scene. Like, I believe this scene probably would have worked if I had, like, lighter colors for the background, for, the trees out there and the sky, and her cape is the same color as those curtains, and it's just distracting. So I did try and blend them. I know I just said you can't really blend cheap markers. You can try. They will, like, kind of tear into each other, especially with these. But, I did try it on my swatch page, and I got some interesting colors, so I did try and do a little bit of blending. Not a whole lot. I just don't think it worked out all that well. For the black, it was really dried out, so I used it for the silver and the crown and kind of as shadows. I used it as the bench back there. Here you can see I'm trying to give her makeup, and it did eat away in the paper. It came out okay, I guess. And of course, the red of the bench back there got onto the bird, so I tried to do some details on the bird and give it some markings to kind of blend in with that. But again, this scene was it was too busy and the colors were too bright, and I think that's why I didn't like it, and so I decided to give these markers one more shot. So here I am trying again. Yeah, and I'm using the Copic fine liner again because I just thought, let's be fair and use the same materials as the last picture. The only thing that's different is really the paper. And it ate away at this paper too. Again, I didn't try actual, like, marker paper, which I do have. I have actual Copic marker paper. But, again, it was the bold colors. And this kind of helped. Just having the white background and just using a few colors. I tried to use as many as possible, but ones that would make sense. So, yeah, I've got just a little cake here. And I really like drawing cute food. I don't know why. Oh, and you see, I've started to learn how to color when I'm filming from above, because my wrist is kind of bent, so you can see the picture a little bit better instead of my arm blocking it. So I hope I didn't come off as a snob in this video. I think the message is that even if you can't afford really fancy markers, you don't have to settle, or, art supplies in general, you don't have to settle for the absolute cheapest. Again, there are better versions of cheap markers out there. I haven't used Crayola in a long time, but I do remember them working a lot better than this. So, yeah, if you see these generic, cheap dollar store markers, just don't waste your time or your money on them. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Bye.